Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you very much for joining us for today's webinar on bridging the gap between AI potential and business value, with a real focus on how strategic leaders get it right. So this is brought to you by the LSE AI Leadership Accelerator, and I am Jack Hylands. I'm one of the co-founders and co-CEOs of FourthRev. FourthRev, for those of you that don't know, we are an organization that partners with leading universities. We bring together universities, our tech partners and experts to co-create programs which are focused on driving transformational career impact, career outcomes in high growth digital fields. So unsurprisingly, AI has been a major focus for us for some time now, and just very excited to be working with the fantastic institution of LSE to bring you this AI Leadership Accelerator that we're going to get into some more details on later in the session. So just working through the slides now. So bit more detail here just on how we collaborate with LSE, who are bringing you this program, where you will get your certificate. You'll learn from the fantastic expertise of the prestigious institution that is LSE, also working with some of the industry experts, career coaches, employer partners, and others that FourthRev bring to the experience as well. So really trying to combine that academic excellence with that real world focus to give this career focused program that best of both worlds offer an experience. So the agenda for today. So we're going to get through quite a lot in a short period of time. We'll do our best, and I'll do my best to keep time, and so we can get through it all. But we're going to start with the focus on the AI deployment gap and why most organizations struggle to actually translate the potential of AI into that real world business value, the core leadership practices that are essential for that successful AI transformation that we're also focused on achieving over the coming period, and then the business impact of effective AI leadership. What is it actually translating to, the significance of that AI leadership in the overall picture? We're going to then get into some more detail on introducing the LSE AI Leadership Accelerator, as I know that's why a number of you are joining the webinar today as well, to find out some more information on that. And then we're doing our best to retain some time at the end to answer your questions that you submit today for our expert panel. There is a Q&A function in Zoom that I'm sure you're all very familiar with by now. We ask you to place your questions in the Q&A function rather than the general chat. Please do introduce yourselves in the general chat. That's always very welcome, but questions in the Q&A function, and that way we can make sure we get through as many of them as possible at the end of the session. I won't come to them before, we'll save them until the end. Okay, so getting into today's session, want to start off by introducing you to your panel for today. And so I'm going to ask our panelists to turn on their cameras now and join us on the virtual stage. And then I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. And George, if you could kick off for us, please.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me along. George Johnston. I'm a partner in Deloitte. I focus on all things data analytics and AI, and focus on clients within the telecoms, media and technology sector.
Thanks very much, George. Dory, over to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dory. I'm working at the management department at LSE. I'm an associate professor education, and I've been teaching and researching change management, leadership and strategy in the last few years. And of course, I'm working with organizations and students on how to integrate generative AI into education and industry at the moment. I lead innovation in the department in education and assessment. I am the leader of the artificial intelligence working group in the management department, and I'm also working on the school level, preparing the institution for this amazing change. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to a very interesting discussion with you.
Thank you, Dory. Much appreciated. And Danny.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Danny. I'm the London School of Economics Enrollment Manager here at FourthRev. And me and my team are here to support you in the decision-making process to make sure that this is the right program for you and to make sure we align your outcomes with the outcomes of the program. I'm looking forward to today's session and answering some questions later.
Wonderful. So I think everyone will agree we've got a fantastic panel here today, really bringing together the essence of the Career Accelerator proposition with leaders of industry and academia combining into that collective overall experience to drive those short-term and longer-term career outcomes that the programs endeavour to provide. And so getting into the topic of AI, starting off with a bit of context, and that is the AI hype versus reality gap. I'm sure that AI is driving at least some, if not most, of everyone on this call's professional conversations and a number of their personal ones now on a day-to-day basis. And it feels like it is absolutely everywhere. But the research from the leading market institutions, leading consultancies, as well as the academic research is really highlighting the stark reality between the hype around AI and actually the number of organizations that are managing to translate that into really meaningful business impact to date. And so some of those that we pulled out here, and of course there are many more that we could have chosen, but just 1% of organizations considering themselves mature in AI deployment, 74% of organizations acknowledging that they struggle to achieve value from AI, and just 4% of companies that are being deemed as true AI leaders that are consistently managing to translate the potential of AI into real value. And these are stark numbers in terms of highlighting that sort of lost opportunity, but in terms of just that commercial impact, we know that billions and billions of dollars are already being invested into AI, yet that ROI is not yet translating. And so what we're trying to understand today is a bit about why that is the case, and would love to come to you, George, straight away to just get a bit of insight as to how these numbers on the screen, how that introduction mirrors with your experience in practice, working in boardrooms and on the ground across a number of the region's leading organizations.
Yeah, indeed. So I guess it's probably helpful to add a little bit of further context. So the concept of AI has been around since about the 50s, but in reality, it's really sort of entered the business world, I would say, and we started talking about it a lot in the last 10 years or so. However, that has accelerated significantly over the last 30 months with the advent of GenAI. So prior to GenAI, there was lots of AI going on, predominantly computer vision, machine learning, deep learning. But it probably hadn't quite hit the boardroom in the same way that that generative AI caused that to happen. So I think that's probably why maybe some of these numbers are a little bit lower than one would have maybe expected. So I do suspect that prior to the advent of GenAI, the numbers in terms of achieving value would have been higher. We would have had a higher percentage of people who actually were seeing value from it. But with GenAI coming in and the amount of experimentation that's been happening and proof of concepts that they are what they say they are in terms of some work, some don't. I suspect that may have dampened some of the numbers a little bit. I think the part around maturity is unsurprising. Like I say, it's a fairly new topic to many, and so as a consequence, I think the number of organisations that would put their hand up and say they were mature probably is understandably low, because actually it is quite a steep learning curve that everyone is on at the moment, and made all the more difficult as a consequence of the technology changing like almost on a daily basis. There's continually new releases, new functionality, etc. So it's I'm not surprised, I think, is the summary.
Yeah, I think really interesting point. Maybe if we'd asked this question a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, a number of organizations would have considered themselves relatively mature, but the advent of Gen AI has just shifted everyone's perception of what's possible and what should be being achieved, and that sense that one's competitors are doing so much more with it than oneself is, I'm sure, a feeling that everyone and every organization, or at least 99% of them, have, and that's definitely feeling more acute in recent times. well, on that basis, to sort of get a little bit more context, we're going to go through to a quick poll. So we're going to ask everyone on the webinar to respond to a poll, which will come up imminently, and let us know where are you on your AI journey or your organization? What stage best describes your AI initiatives? And you've got 5 options there, and we'll give people about 30 seconds to respond before coming back to have a look at who's on the call. Okay, so the 5 options are still exploring possibilities, running pilot projects, scaling successful pilots, AI fully integrated into operations, and also struggling to move beyond pilots. Okay, and we should have the results with us very shortly. Here we go. So everyone should be able to see those, and a majority are running pilot projects. I think that isn't surprising as well. There's been some really good progress of people leaning into AI, but getting beyond that pilot projects into that sort of full successful integration, scaling those pilots or making them sort of part of BAU operations is such a critical extra leap, where we know a lot of organizations and individuals are really, that's a big bottleneck point. Still exploring possibilities is the other major sort of area, and so people even earlier in that AI journey, which again, I think it's really useful to see these kind of stats and understand that one's in a similar position often to everyone else, even if the perception can be slightly different. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's great context for us to understand sort of where everyone is on their journey. And so then coming through to, back to that sort of topic of today's webinar, which is around translating from that hype into that real business value. And so what does the research tell us are some of the root causes of why organizations are struggling to translate real value in AI? Now, of course, a big part of this is that it's very early on the journey. Generative AI, we're sort of talking 30 months. Some are moving at speed, but that's still a relatively small period of time, especially in some large organizations. But I think what's really interesting to us from the research is that fundamentally the challenge, we're being told, is organizational and not technical. Relatively speaking, the technology is now widely available and affordable, but it's other challenges within people, within process, within infrastructure, which is actually proving a greater barrier to translating this into real value. And that's the research we're seeing through LSE, as well as through MIT here referenced, as well as some other leading consultancies. So Dory, would love to come to you at this point, and this is obviously great area of your expertise around the people's process, the organizational side of creating real value from digital transformation. So how does these headlines sort of mirror with your insight and research on the space?
Thank you so much, Jack. Yes, exactly. I mean, with every digital transformation, it all depends on the people. You can introduce a new system, but if people don't use it, or they revert back to the old systems, it's not going to work. With generative AI and AI more generally, it's more complex because it is not like traditional technology. So it will impact a lot of different aspects of the organization, decision-making processes. Companies will have to think about reprocessing how the company is run. So the biggest issues in these elements are the psychological dimension, the cultural dimension, and possibly the leadership dimension. I would highlight these 3 elements that are causing the biggest issues. So psychologically, people are fearing about being replaced, losing their jobs. A lot of the times they might be resistant to use the technology, and that actually holds for leadership as well, because we cannot fully trust the outcomes that generative AI produces, and because of its sometimes non-transparent nature. So there are trust issues as well. And there is also the cultural dimension that in order to integrate generative AI and AI into the organization, you really need to figure out how you create an organization that is agile, that is working with small teams and flexible, and you can make changes if needed. And the third one is the leadership during technological change. So how leadership acts as a role model. Does leadership have an overview, a strategy of how to integrate these new technologies into the overall business strategy is a big question, and it's a big challenge for leadership at the moment. So I will stop there.
Yeah, really fascinating. And yeah, as you say, there's sort of digital transformations, that there's certain principles which are consistent with any technological digital transformation that organizations are trying to bring about, but then AI also bringing some unique and new challenges which organizations are having to really lean into, which of course there are some historical precedent, but definitely new dimensions, it seems, to it as well. And George, coming back to you, how does that sort of those key three headlines, or anyone in particular, sort of resonate with you and the work that you're doing directly with organizations on this topic?
So I think that there definitely are familiarities in there. I think from my experience, there is no shortage or desire to explore the topic of AI. I think we've done numerous surveys, etc., that will say that sort of a very high percentage of CXOs across all organizations, across all industries, are actively keen to understand how AI can transform their business, be that better customer service, improved operations, etc. And of course that there is a lot going on in terms of experimentation and scaling, as you say. I think one thing that I'm also seeing, however, is probably the economic conditions aren't helpful at the moment either. So, and just to expand upon that, you don't experiment for nothing. That there is a cost to these things, and I think at the moment there probably are a number of organisations that are saying, actually, do you know what? Given that we are continuing to face economic headwinds, is now the time to be spending money on something that may actually not work, or shall we hold on to that for the time being, understand what others are doing? We don't necessarily need to be the first mover, and sort of learn from what others are doing. So I think there's a little bit of that at play as well, that maybe people are being a bit more cautious at the moment as a consequence of that.
Yeah, no, very interesting. And these sort of economic headwinds, which I think people had hoped might have dissipated a little bit, but new challenges being thrown up on a very regular basis. And so, George, what sort of guidance do you give to people as they're trying to strike that right balance between yes, managing the finance and the risk elements with the need to stay on the front foot and respond to these challenges without being left behind?
Yeah. So if I think about some of the experimentation that's not worked so well, I guess probably the most common factor that we've seen is that there's either not been sufficient senior sponsorship, and or there's a limited path to that scaling. So looking at kind of point solutions that it may work, it may not work, but actually how will that have an impact on a wider organization? How does that part of a process that you may have automated or made more efficient, or taken 80% of human intervention out of, how will it actually scale and impact your overarching processes in your business? And that tends to be where things fall down a little bit. Not understanding the end-to-end process of how you are going to transform, and having the senior buy-in.
Yeah, okay. Makes a lot of sense, and sort of leads through again to some of the key areas of research and the importance of leadership in terms of achieving these outcomes. And so Deloitte more broadly, and I think the Deloitte AI Institute, which is being referenced here in particular, has done a lot of research into the criticality of leadership in terms of translating these potential into value and at scale within organizations. And 7 key principles that have been, or practices that have been called out to distinguish AI leaders, which is of course very relevant to the sort of focus and topic of this audience. And so those 7, just very quickly, around foster trust and transparency, lead with a clear vision and business case, establish strong AI governance and ethics, invest in people and skills, encourage experimentation and learn from failure, show visible leadership and align from the top, and lead ethically and responsibly. So first of all, just sort of staying with yourself, George, was wondering if there were any of these, of the 7, probably don't have time to go through them all, but any of those that you thought you could potentially pull out and expand on, and how you've seen in practice why they are so significant and how they've been so significant.
Yeah. So I think a couple that I'll sort of draw on experience from. So I do consider myself very lucky that in 2016, a CFO of a media client sort of said to me, what should we be thinking about AI? How should we be, looking to understand how we could harness that across our business? Which, like I said, that's 9 years ago. That was certainly more visionary than many. So that was where my transition from analytics into AI sort of started to happen. And I think that was an organization that was fully in tune with the CFO's vision in terms of, this is experimentation. We're going to look at machine learning. We're going to look at computer vision. We don't know where it may be applicable. There will be lots of experimentation. It may not work. But because he was consistent with that messaging, and that was cascaded across the organization, the openness of people to participate and really open up their imagination to the possibilities made for it was best part of 12 months. We were working on a whole series of different experiments. But as a consequence of that buy-in and communication as well, it just made for a really rich and frankly successful engagement. And it did put that organization somewhat ahead at the time of many of their competitors, and actually it continues to stand them in good stead. The other one I would probably pick out would be around leading with clear vision and a business case. So again, maybe 3-4 years ago, we were helping a telecoms company to effectively reimagine their processes for expanding their network. So basically building fiber to the premise, and they were struggling from a throughput perspective and a productivity perspective. It was their end-to-end process was just not going as quickly as they would have liked it to have gone. And so together we worked up a view as to how AI could potentially help with that. And there was definitely quite a lot of cynicism and skepticism from many across the organization that you'll not be able to effectively get a computer to do what we're doing at the moment. It won't be as quick, it won't be as accurate, there'll be lots of false positives, etc. But our sponsor of the project, who sat on the board, he was unwavering in his commitment and focus and actually trust in building this solution. And I think that was the thing that really struck me, and it is resilience as well. So there were, of course, setbacks. There were a number of setbacks, but rather than sort of letting them derail us, we would actually look upon them as opportunities to improve things. So quick example would be data quality. So I'm sure people talk about data quality and data availability. We talk about it all the time when it comes to AI. But it's absolutely true, right? You are so dependent on quality of your data, and like many organizations, the data wasn't fabulous. But rather than sort of saying, right, well, that's it, we can't do this as a consequence of our poor data quality, it was viewed as an opportunity to improve it. We've now got a reason to actually make sure that our data is better. We can then sail that across our organization, make people understand the impact of poor data quality, etc. So I think that resilience point actually is one that I would highlight also from a sort of core leadership capability.
Yeah, really interesting. I think to sort of touch on both of those points, and then particularly in the context of your earlier point around in these economic headwinds, but it's that sort of, that encouragement of experimentation and learning from failure and the resilience to sort of stay the course despite those setbacks. And that, of course, even more challenging in to stay true to that vision, I suppose, when the economic conditions are such that budgets are so tight and everything's being scrutinized and every spend has to be well justified. So I think that's where leadership becomes ever more critical, because you have to really understand what it is that you're aiming.
Yeah.
Perhaps more sensible to retreat back to areas of safety, knowing what really looks what good really looks like and what needs to be done in order to get there and continuing to push through. Very, very interesting. Dory, of course, you've been looking at digital transformation in many contexts for a long period of time. Again, these practices here, any of these that are jumping out to you in particular, especially in the context of AI and things that you're potentially seeing as even more significant for AI transformations?
Yes, I completely agree with George about in order to scale, you have to start somewhere. You have to start experimenting. And if it is just a small project, then it's a good idea to start with a smaller project rather than launching something that you don't know what the impact will be with. So I think it's very important that the leadership is clear about how they can use AI for the benefit of the business, how it can create value for the business, and that there is also a visible, clear accountability and governance throughout the organization. So leadership actually takes ownership of this space, because I think what is really different with this sort of transformation is that you have to have cross-functional teams. It's not enough to give it to your IT department, or one or two departments are working in silos. You really have to bring people together and figure out how these systems can be embedded in the organization in a way that actually creates value. So clear accountability and governance from the senior leadership is very important. And research shows that those organizations where you have very clear leadership, they will make financially more viable investments into AI. Then the second one is about integration into the core processes. So just to make sure that it actually helps and creates value for the customers or for the markets. And the biggest thing today is, I think, what really leadership has to think about is that this transformation requires very solid change management, the human side of change. And you have to work with professional methods of change management that will help people go through these changes, and you work out the new culture, because a lot of organizations are not prepared for this sort of culture of experimentation. A lot of organizations are still operating in silos and segregated units, whereas with these processes and systems, you really have to have agile, continuous communication, feedback loops, and experimentation. So yeah, I agree with most of what has been said, but I think it's a big challenge, because while you are trying to figure out what you are rolling out, you also have to learn as a leader and as an employee, and there are so many risks involved in what we can use and how we can use our data that we'll touch upon later. But yes, the first is that it's a very fast-moving field and everybody is learning it, and it is, of course, on top of a job. So that's one of the challenges as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that point around it being an entire organizational lift and effort, and the criticality of breaking out of those silos and making sure that there's buy-in across the organization, and that needs obviously fantastic leadership to achieve, resonates incredibly strongly. And also that last point, in number of conversations I've had with leaders of AI, often these are people with decades of experience in data science or other areas of technology operations, but the things that they're now needing to lead in AI is requiring them again to be incredibly fast learners and that true lifelong learning, which we talk about it all of the time, but this era of generative AI has really put back on steroids, and people, no matter where they are in their career, having to reskill, upskill, and engage on these developments on an almost daily basis. So yes, it's a challenging but incredibly exciting time at all at the same time, I think. Thank you very much. We're needing to sort of push through to make sure that we've got time to get to some questions which have started to come through on the Q&A at the end as well. So please do submit your questions on the Q&A. If we haven't got to them yet, we will try our best to before we wrap up the session. And we've touched on some of these next areas. So I'm going to skip through to just a final sort of summary of this first section before we come back to Danny to share a bit around the LSE AI Leadership Accelerator itself. So just first of all, these key takeaways for your AI leadership journey. We covered a lot of ground there in the sort of last 25 minutes, but I think that what we're talking about here is AI success is primarily now a leadership challenge and not a technical one, and I think that that's been the huge shift that generative AI has unlocked. That technology availability and relative affordability means that it is organizational leadership and aspects that are key to unlocking that value and success. Trust, we've heard about as well as absolutely critical, unique challenge to this digital transformation, which has been present in others, but perhaps never to the same extent that we're seeing in this AI focused era. And then that clear vision and business alignment, led from the top, communicated right across the organization, and committed to with real resilience as to what good looks like and what needs to be done in order to get there, including going through some of those setbacks, but staying true to the course, and that being visible leadership, being sponsors, being leading those action initiatives, being committed to it, being present in the most successful use cases that we've seen to date. So George and Dory, thank you very much for your insights so far. Please have a short breather before we come back to you both for the Q&A at the end of the session. Danny, I'm now going to pass over to you to share a bit more detail on the AI Leadership Accelerator itself.
Yeah, so thank you, Jack. The LSE AI Leadership Accelerator is really a program that has been purpose-built for leaders navigating the complexity and opportunity of the AI age. This is a career-first, leadership-focused journey designed for senior professionals, directors, consultants, and sector experts who are advising on or leading AI initiatives. Whether you're shaping strategy or guiding transformation, this Leadership Accelerator gives you the practical, applicable tools to lead with confidence. The program is fully online. The duration is about 6 months, and there's a time commitment of up to 10 hours a week. And this program combines project-based learning, live executive coaching, and peer cohort collaboration. So what truly sets this apart is the applied focus. You won't just learn about AI on the program, but you'll build your own AI leadership toolkit. This is going to be tailored to your unique context. You'll work on real-world scenarios and develop actionable strategies to drive AI from pilot to impact. You'll learn how to align AI to your business goals, how to lead with ethics and transparency, and how to guide your teams through transformation and clarity and purpose. This is not just a theoretical program. It's giving you the tools to create real change. The learning isn't done in a vacuum, as you can see from our panel. The curriculum is co-developed with industry leaders, including experts from Deloitte's Office of GenAI, the heads of AI at forward-thinking companies like Inchcape Digital and Thread. That means you're gaining insights grounded in practice, not just principle. Add to that the prestige of the London School of Economics and Political Science, one of the world's leading institutes. You walk away with not just knowledge, but a globally recognized certificate, a powerful leadership brand uplift. And finally, you become part of a global executive network, learning alongside others who are driving transformation in their own organizations. So if you're serious about future-proofing your leadership and unlocking the real value of AI with responsibility, with credibility, and strategy at the heart, this could be your next step. We'll share a link shortly where you can register your interest for the program. You can chat directly with one of our enrollment advisors who'll guide you through the decision-making process and answer any of your questions about the program. Or you can also join me tomorrow. I'm going to have a group call or a drop-in session where I'll also chat to you one-on-one in a group setting, and we can chat a little bit more about the program and what it can offer you. It's an absolute pleasure now to hand over to Dory to tell us a little bit more about their role and the couple of curriculum highlights. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Danny. So yeah, I'm super excited about this program because we developed this program for you to really be able to take the leadership in this space. It is such a complex space, and a lot of programs are focusing on the technicalities, about AI, about machine learning and all of that. But what we really wanted to focus on is how to equip you to make a success of whatever organization you are leading, integrating AI, or actually just maybe evaluating the impact of AI and generative AI on your organization, on your market, on your field. So I think there is a lot of AI hype in the market right now, possibly driven by technology companies. But what really this program is promising to do, hopefully, is to equip you with the knowledge and the skills so that you can judge what to invest in and how to invest in, and whether to invest in this technology, how it can help your organization. So what I'm really excited about in this program is that we will have the first course about just equipping you with the background technological knowledge that you need as well to understand how AI works. But we will also walk you through the managerial impact of this technology and the impact on the organization, the skills, and the human dynamics, how teams collaborate when you have an AI agent as part of the team, for instance. And then the second course will go into more detail about how to create value, because a lot of companies are pouring out their money to invest in technologies that are then not creating real value for the organization long term. So we are hopefully equipping you with some skills and knowledge here that will help you develop a very solid business case. Think about vendors, how to select them, how to pitch for senior decision makers, and just how to make good decisions about investing. And then the third course will be about change management and leadership. So we'll really dig into the human side of change and how to help your teams, your organizations through this technological transformation. And the fourth course is about equipping you with the practical skills to really make use of generative AI and AI in your own work, in your professional life, and with your teams as well. I'm very excited that I worked on this program with a colleague of mine, John Cardozo Silva, who is from the Data Science Institute. So he's a data scientist, and we put our heads together. So I think it's a very solid program in terms of the technological and the human side, the combination of that. So I'm very, very excited and looking forward to seeing you.
Dory, Danny, thank you very much for giving us that comprehensive overview. As Danny mentioned, for people with more detailed questions, either book a call with an enrollment advisor, or Danny is hosting a drop-in session where the link is also being shared tomorrow for people to listen to others' questions as well, where there'll be a lot of common things that people wanting to understand, I'm sure. I should call out, we've got a very special foundation cohort kicking off later in June, and be our first intake of this incredibly exciting program. Over 50% of the places for that program have already been committed and reserved. So for those that are keen and eager to get started in the short term, I do encourage you to make progress on that front very quickly, as those places will run out pretty shortly. Okay, thank you. So we've got about 5 to 10 minutes left, which we're going to use to try and get through some of the great questions that have been coming through on the Q&A. And so just coming through to the Q&A session here. Okay, so George and Dory, I'm going to be calling on you, I think in particular, to answer these. And so The first question, I think, is a great one. It's one of the key call-outs that's been made throughout the session, the importance of trust. And so I wanted to know what's the best way you've seen leaders overcome that fear and build genuine trust through their AI initiatives. And George, if we can go to you to kick us off.
Yeah, I think it probably builds upon another one which we talked about, which is transparency, isn't it? You know, in terms of you know, being really clear about what's going to be achieved, and how it's going to be achieved as well. I think there is understandably concern from some people that actually, is this going to automate part of my job? Am I going to be superfluous now? But I think in my instance anyway, I would say that what I'm predominantly seeing from clients and companies that we're working with is actually it's about making people more efficient, about making the workforce more efficient, and actually in some instances, getting them to do be able to do work that previously they weren't able to do because they just didn't have the bandwidth. So it's about doing more with the same, I would have said, rather than making do with less. So I think, you know, as long as that, you know, when these messages and the visions are created and communicated, and the consistency of that message and getting people on board to understand what part they are playing and how their roles will be changing going forward, and actually the excitement about it, because, you know, in many instances there are activities that we're sort of looking at the moment that actually no one likes doing anyway. You know, so in many instances there's many upsides to people adopting AI as well. So I think, you know, as long as the benefits are well understood, this consistency of messaging and that you know, that trust can be built. But you know, it's not. I don't think AI is unique either in that terms. In that instance, in that, you know, technological change can feel threatening regardless of whether it's AI or something else. But yeah, consistency of messaging, I think, to build the trust is absolutely key, because you're not gonna create the change without having the team behind you.
Thank you, George. Dory, I'd love to get your take on that, but in the interest of time, I'm going to come through to the next one, unless there's something that you really wanted to add.
No, yeah, I wanted to add two things, basically. I think it's super important that trust is created by, if you ask people, like, collaboration in this space is super important. Most of the decisions are done on the C-level about, you know, what we are investing in, what we are rolling out, but you really need to talk to the users, the impacted departments, those people who will be affected. And there are so many stakeholders who are affected in this space that that kind of the more collaborative approach to leadership, I think, is super important in this space. And also walking the talk. You know, most leaders are quiet because they are not sure, and that's normal because they do not know necessarily the impact, or they don't have necessarily the complete oversight of the impact of what's going to happen if they roll out a new system. Nobody really has. So making it transparent to people and embracing this change maybe more vocally rather than quiet, you know, being quiet about it and creating an organizational silence about it, I think is very key in this transformation. So I just wanted to add these two things. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for doing so. Both really salient and really interesting. So glad we've had the time to do that. We're into the last couple of minutes. We might go slightly over if I certainly don't want to end the conversation. So just try and get through one or two more questions. So one really interesting one is around AI ethics. It's a critical topic. And interested to get both of your perspectives on how you balance that necessity to rolling out AI responsibly with the challenge of not wanting to slow down innovation. And so, yeah, any insights, George? Can come back to you to kick us off.
Yeah. I mean, a hugely important topic, right? I mean, let's be clear, and we've seen that over the years, you know, the downsides of using a biased data sets, for example, for training models. I think at the moment, there's probably a lot of experimentation going on with large language models that have been trained, outside of companies' remits. So I'm talking about the hyperscalers, for example. And so then the onus is more on them to make sure that they've not got there's no inbuilt biases. And we've all seen headlines around where some have fallen foul on that side of things. However, I think the way that we're seeing the market going, which is more towards almost private large language models, which are built and grounded upon enterprise information, that will become increasingly important. That actually it's a well-rounded and representative set of data that is being used to train the models.
Thanks, George. Dory, anything that you want to add here?
Yeah, just very briefly, I think it's very important in this space that we understand not just the ethics of data, but also the privacy issues. So when, especially with generative AI, when we are talking about, online meeting assistants and a lot of different tools that are used, and one of the audience, somebody said in the chat that it's a lot of organizations, this is a bottom-up approach, so people are just using different AI powered tools, and the implication of those tools on the privacy, the biometric data, and a lot of other things on people in the organization, there are huge implications which we really should think about. And that, of course, we will talk about different types of AI systems, but those are the ones that normally people don't voice when they think about ethics, and I think they are very important. Consent. Did everybody consent to the fact that we are rolling out a system? Or if they haven't, how are we mitigating these issues? How are we preparing people to feel comfortable? Or if they don't, do they have the option to opt out? So, a million questions about human dynamics, how we work together, how it impacts our meetings and workspaces.
Yeah, fascinating, and of course requiring a lot more time than we have today. So couple of last things. So one, just a few links have been shared in the chat, which people haven't had a chance to see yet, around booking a session with your enrollment advisor or dropping into Danny's session tomorrow. So once again, we are sort of well over 50% committed to the first inaugural cohort starting in June, so please do follow up very quickly if that's something of interest to you. And then Dory and George, just ask both of you perhaps to leave the session. There's a question I really like, which I'll just bring it up here, which is if you had to pick just one thing leaders need to do differently right now to get better outcomes in their AI projects, what would it be? And so I'll open the floor to whoever wants to kick us off first.
So
Dory,
I see. Go for it, Dory.
Well, go for it, George.
No problem. So I was just going to say that I think it's just so important to remember that technology will not transform business on its own, right? The businesses need to be fully aligned with the change that's going to come, and businesses drive change, right? It's not technology, and I think in many instances that's where you see failure when the changes for technology's sake. That can never be the case. It always has to be business led.
Yeah, my addition would be, equip yourself with the knowledge. If you have the knowledge and you understand what's happening, you will be able to take leadership. I think the biggest challenge for leaders today is to understand what's going on, and that's like a big ask. But I think once we do that, and there is a collaborative leadership, so people are involved, there are possibilities for feedback and more collaboration. I think it will be easier to roll out any AI initiatives. Thank you.
Wonderful. I think that really nicely rounds us off, and that message where, yes, it's one of those times where leaders really do need to invest in themselves in order to be able to lead their organizations well, and that's dedicating the time, the effort, the focus required to sort of drive their own practice and understanding forward. And so thank you to everyone for joining us on today's session. A particular thanks to our panelists, to George, to Dory, to Danny, and everyone who's supported setting up the session. And then, yes, thank you again to all of the attendees on giving up your time and for your great questions. Sorry we haven't been able to get through them all, and in particular those ones related to the course and the practicalities and the suitability for achieving your goals and aims through the program. Again, really do encourage you to book a call with your EA, or joining Danny's session tomorrow. And on that, I will say thank you very much to everyone. Have a great day, and yeah, hopefully we'll see many of you again in the future. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.